Today, well, we're strapping in to examine a corporate giant whose golden arches have become synonymous not just with food, but with globalization, corporate influence, and controversy itself.
That's right. We're moving far beyond the Happy Meal and the usual anecdotes.
Yeah, definitely. We want to unpack the sheer volume of criticism faced by McDonald's.
And when you look at the sources, I mean, they span decades, covering everything from product safety, labor issues, environmental impact, huge legal battles, and now even significant geopolitical turmoil. It's overwhelming.
It really is. You could argue the critique of McDonald's is maybe the most comprehensive corporate case study in modern history.
I think you could. Yeah. So our mission today is to give you a rapid yet, thorough understanding of the full scope of these controversies.
We're aiming for the systemic stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding what happens when a model built for speed and efficiency scales up to serve billions across these wildly different ethical and regulatory landscapes.
Exactly. We'll start with the early health crusades and work our way right up to the modern boycott movements we're seeing now.
It's a study in complexity, really, and corporate accountability.
Let's unpack this global behemoth.
Okay, let's dive in at the most basic level. The product itself, the food, and those early challenges to the menu that really put the whole fast food industry on notice.
Yeah, the sources really point back to the late 1980s and specifically to this pivotal figure, Phil Sokoloff.
Right, Sokoloff. What makes his intervention so significant, as you pointed out, is that he wasn't like a professional activist. He was a businessman, a millionaire.
It was deeply personal for him. He had a serious heart attack, aged only 43 back in 87. And, public awareness about saturated fat was growing, but McDonald's was still using beef tallow for their fries. Tradition, I guess.
So what did he do?
His response was immediate and, frankly, pretty high profile. He started taking out these full-page ads in major papers, New York, Chicago.
Wow. And these weren't subtle ads, were they?
Not at all. He was directly accusing the McDonald's menu of threatening American health.
Right.
His big focus was that beef tallow packed with saturated fat used for the French fries. He demanded they stop.
So this was foundational, you're saying. It kind of forced the corporation's hand on public health.
It really did. The pressure was intense, sustained, and ultimately McDonald's did shift away from beef tallow to vegetable oils. It was a critical moment where a consumer, a very wealthy, very determined consumer, basically forced a major menu change purely on health grounds.
And that success, that health focus, it sort of set the stage for later critiques that went broader than just fat content, like Eric Schlosser's book, Fast Food Nation in 2001. That was huge.
Oh, absolutely transformative. Schlosser has used McDonald's as a lens, really, to look at American industrial, agriculture, labor practices, the whole system.
You went beyond the plate.
Exactly. He focused on the corporate structure. Key critiques were allegations that McDonald's used its immense financial power for political influence, maximizing profits. And he detailed how this degraded conditions for workers, for suppliers.
And he also hit hard on targeting kids, didn't he? The advertising.
Definitely. Schlosser laid out how McDonald's and the wider industry developed these incredibly pervasive, sophisticated ad techniques, playgrounds, mascots, the whole Happy Meal strategy, all designed to build brand loyalty from the youngest possible age.
So the critique shifted. It wasn't just saturated fats anymore. It was about corporate power, ethics, influencing policy, influencing kids' health.
Precisely. And then came the documentaries, which brought the visual evidence. They pushed it into pop culture. Most famously, Morgan Spurlock's 2004 film, Super Size Me.
Ah, yes, Super Size Me. Everyone remembers that one.
It captured the public imagination instantly. Spurlock's experiment was, extreme. He claimed he ate only McDonald's for 30 days, followed certain rules, like always saying yes to supersize if offered.
Leading to, 5,000 calories some days?
Something like that. The film showed his rapid weight gain, mood swings, liver problems, directly linking the menu to the obesity epidemic and hammering the lack of easy nutritional info.
And the corporate reaction was fast. Really fast.
Immediate. Almost panicked, you could say. Just 6 weeks after the premiere, McDonald's eliminated the supersize option globally. Gone.
And they brought in the adult Happy Meal too, right? Trying to pivot.
They did, yeah. With slightly healthier options, it was a very visible reaction. Now, to be fair, we should mention the counter-documentary, Fathead.
Ah, right. That challenged Spurlock's methods.
Yeah, it pointed out alleged inconsistencies, questions about his calorie counts, his prior diet, that kind of thing. But regardless of that debate, The initial policy change itself shows the power popular media can have on a global corporation.
Okay, so beyond obesity, there are also legal challenges about hidden ingredients, particularly for vegetarians, the 2002 lawsuit.
Yes, this was critical for transparency. McDonald's US had indicated their fries were cooked in vegetable oil, so many vegetarians assumed they were safe.
But they weren't entirely.
Well, they contained natural beef flavoring, derived from beef broth, added during pre-processing for taste.
And the Hindu and Buddhist groups sued over that misrepresentation successfully.
Yes, they did. The company had to pay out $10 million to these groups and issue a public apology. This wasn't about health in the usual sense. It was about ethical labeling, transparency, especially across cultural and religious lines. It shows how tricky a global menu is.
And then finally, in this early phase we get to, pink slime. That term just stuck.
It is a visceral term, isn't it? It refers to lean, finely textured beef, LFTB.
Can you break down what that actually is?
Sure, it's made from beef trimmings bits previously not really used for human consumption. These are heated, spun to get fat out, and then treated with ammonia gas.
Ammonia. Why?
To kill bacteria like E. coli. The resulting product is then mixed into ground beef, mainly to cut costs.
And the public outrage came when this process was revealed.
Exactly. It was partly transparency, partly just the unappetizing sound of it all. A viral video in 2012 really blew the lid off, showing the mechanical process. Huge public outcry over food safety, this perception of using chemically treated waste.
Even though the USDA said it was safe.
Yes, the USDA maintained it was safe, but the public perception was so strong that McDonald's stopped using LFTB from that specific supplier in 2012. Another example of consumer power, really.
Okay, let's shift from the food itself to the workplace. The corporate practices, the labor issues. This is where some of the most consistent biting criticisms come in. It starts with the job itself, the McJob.
Right. The cultural impact of that term is just immense. It popped up in the mid-'80s, but Douglas Capon really cemented it in his book Generation X in '91.
And then Merriam-Webster made it official in 2003. What was their definition again?
A low-paying job that requires little skill and provides little opportunity for advancement. Pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's not just descriptive, it implies a lack of prospects. It really defined fast food work negatively in the West. How did McDonald's react to having its name become shorthand for, well, dead-end work?
Oh, they fought back. Hard. It was a threat to recruitment. In 2007, for instance, they launched this big ad campaign in Ireland. The slogan was, "Would you like a career with that?"
Trying to reframe it.
Exactly. Highlighting management training, flexibility, potential for ownership. A direct, expensive PR push against that dictionary definition.
It's funny how the McPrefix also ended up in McMansion, another negative term.
Yeah, Merriam-Webster has that too. Describes those big, cheaply built, kind of ostentatious suburban houses. It shows how McCabe became shorthand for mass-produced, maybe low-quality uniformity, whether it's jobs or houses.
So moving from the definition to the actual reported practices, the sources paint a darker picture sometimes. Unfair labor practices seem pretty persistent globally.
The allegations are wide-ranging, and systemic. It shows how hard it is to regulate a huge franchise network. You see reports of illegal shift scheduling, things like clopenings.
Where you close late and open early the next day.
Exactly. Sometimes leading to shifts that are effectively like 25 hours long with barely any rest. It makes managing childcare or studying almost impossible.
And workers pushed back.
Yeah.
Strikes.
Yeah, definitely saw worker strikes like in the UK over low wages and demanding better, more predictable schedules.
And then the allegations get much more serious. Those 2023 UK reports about abuse were disturbing.
Deeply troubling. Hundreds of reported cases of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, racial abuse, often by managers targeting younger staff.
And the sources suggested it was systemic in some places, a cultural issue.
That's what the investigations implied. A culture in some franchises where managers felt they could exploit junior staff, maybe due to high turnover or lack of oversight.
Which brings up that core challenge of the franchise model, right? How does corporate HQ manage alleged misconduct across thousands of independent owners?
That's the million-dollar question, legally and ethically. Look at the 2019 U.S. lawsuit by Jenna Rees citing sexual harassment, a toxic work environment. McDonald's corporate often tries to distance itself, saying franchisees are independent.
But the repeated issues suggest maybe a failure to enforce baseline standards.
That's the argument. And it's global. Remember that 2007 case in Australia. Fined $8,000 for employing kids under 15 illegally. It points to maybe a permissiveness towards labor laws when chasing cheap labor.
Okay, shifting up to the top level, financial governance. There was that satirical video game in 2006 that seemed to capture the critique well.
Yeah, that game was brilliant satire. You played the CEO, making choices, used GMO feed, plow rainforests, bribe officials. It reflected those long-standing accusations that profit trumped everything, even ethics.
And that translated into real-world financial trouble, like the huge tax avoidance issue in France.
A perfect example of that complex financial maneuvering corporations get criticized for. The French investigation, wrapping up around 2016, alleged McDonald's used a common tactic.
Shifting profits.
Basically, yeah. Instead of paying taxes on high profits made in France, they allegedly moved revenue out. Often by charging French branches hefty fees for using the brand name, the operations manual, intellectual property stuff.
Funneling it to places with lower taxes. Luxembourg, Switzerland.
That's the typical mechanism. It dramatically lowers the profit reported in high-tax France.
And the bill was enormous.
300 million. That was the figure French authorities billed McDonald's France for unpaid taxes between 2009 and 2013. It put a very concrete number on these alleged tax avoidance strategies.
It really seems like anything that happens at McDonald's, even small local stuff, gets amplified globally because of the brand. Like that Grimace Wiki thing in 2023.
Oh, that was fascinating. It shows corporate control extending even into like fan wikis. McDonald's paid Fandom, the platform, an unknown amount.
To do what exactly?
To basically replace the entire fan-written history page for the character Grimace with a corporate press release promoting the new Grimace Shake. Yeah. The fan author protested, saying it set a bad precedent, suppressing user content for ads. It shows that brand control now includes controlling nostalgia, fan culture, everything.
And even just a rude employee in China writing an insult on a receipt becomes a global story.
Exactly. That 2024 case in Nanton, China, an employee wrote, basically idiot on a customer's refund receipt. It just blew up online.
Just local frustration, really.
But because it's under the golden arches, it becomes this global symbol of bad service. It perfectly illustrates the challenge, maintaining brand standards when you have millions of often stressed, low-paid employees under pressure.
Okay, let's pivot to the environment. McDonald's footprint is obviously huge. The sheer volume of materials waste is astronomical. But the sources do acknowledge some real progress over the years.
It's that classic paradox, isn't it? Massive impact, but also massive resources for mitigation. If we start with the positives, they have genuinely reduced packaging weight. An average meal Big Mac, fries, drink the packaging is down 46% since the 70s, from 46 grams to about 25 grams now.
And that wasn't just tinkering. There was that big collaboration.
With the Environmental Defense Fund, EDF, back in 1990, that was revolutionary for corporate sustainability at the time. It led to getting rid of those styrofoam clamshell containers completely.
That was a big visual change.
Huge. And it meant redesigning everything. Plus other things, like converting used cooking grease into biodiesel for their trucks in Europe, or using bulk delivery systems for soda syrup that save millions of pounds of packaging. The EPA even recognized their waste reduction efforts.
Right, but those achievements sit alongside this.
Well,
this paradox with the next generation of green initiatives. Like, switching materials doesn't always solve the problem, does it? Sometimes it just shifts it.
That's absolutely the core of the current critique. Take sourcing.
Yeah.
The move to Rainforest Alliance coffee, organic milk in the UK, addressing specific consumer demands there. But then you get controversies like the big switch from plastic to paper straws.
Which happened across the UK, Ireland, Australia, other places between 2018 and 2021.
Yeah.
The idea was good, right? Less single-use plastic.
Oh, the intent was good, sure. But the execution immediately hit problems. Consumers complained the paper straws got soggy, fell apart, just didn't work well.
But there was a bigger technical problem, too, with other green materials.
Yeah, specifically with things like corn-based bioplastics, often PLA or PHA used for some containers. Critics point out these create a whole new set of issues.
How so? Aren't bioplastics supposed to be better?
Well, in theory. In
Yeah.
practice, it's complicated. They don't easily biodegrade in normal landfills. They need industrial composting facilities, which are still pretty rare.
And what about recycling?
That's the other big problem. If these bioplastic containers end up in the regular plastic recycling stream, they actually contaminate it. They have different chemical makeups, lower melting points. They mess up the whole batch.
So the green solution actually makes recycling harder.
In some cases, yeah. It turns a well-intentioned initiative into a potential headache for the recycling system.
And then there's this simple, visible problem of litter. McDonald's packaging is just everywhere.
It's persistent, yeah, and quantified. They're consistently one of the most littered brands globally. That 2009 Keep Britain Tidy study found McDonald's stuff was 29% of all fast food litter on UK streets.
29%, just from them.
Yeah. And that visibility sparks direct action. Remember Operation Send It Back in 1994? Activists collected 30 huge sacks of McDonald's litter and just dumped it back at their headquarters.
Making them literally take responsibility for it.
Visually forcing the issue, exactly. It's an externalized cost, the cleanup that activists wanted to bring home.
Okay, finally in this section, supplier ethics, specifically animal welfare.
Yes.
Still a major pressure point.
Definitely. Animal welfare groups, especially in Europe and North America, are increasingly sophisticated. Like that 2021 protest by Animal Rising, they blockaded 4 UK distribution centers.
Caused food shortages, right? What was their specific demand?
They were targeting the alleged suffering of animals in the high-volume supply chain, pushing for changes.
Like demanding specific slaughter methods, controlled atmosphere killing, or stunning.
Yeah, K or CAS. That involves stunning or killing poultry using gas mixtures, often CO2. It's generally seen as less stressful, more humane than traditional electrical stunning.
But McDonald's response seemed cautious.
Extremely cautious. Their official line acknowledged the issue, but highlighted the enormous cost and infrastructure changes needed for their massive supply chain. And crucially, they stated more research is needed to determine which system is truly optimal from an animal welfare perspective.
Which sounds like delaying tactics.
Well, it allows them to acknowledge the concern without committing to immediate, widespread, expensive changes. It's a careful balancing act.
We've seen criticisms touch every part of the business. But wow, nothing has exposed the brand's global vulnerability quite like the geopolitical fallout from the Israel-Gaza conflict recently.
Yeah, that whole situation is a masterclass in how one localized action in a franchise model can just explode into immediate, massive global brand damage.
So the trigger was the McDonald's Israeli franchisee, Alonial, back in October 2023. What did they do?
They provided thousands of free meals to the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF.
And the global reaction was?
Instantaneous, explosive. Hashtag boycott McDonald's trended globally. The brand was immediately tangled up in the conflict.
And this really showed the danger of the franchise model, didn't it? Because other franchises had to react.
Starkly. Franchises in Muslim-majority countries, Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, others had to issue these public, almost frantic statements. They distanced themselves explicitly from the Israeli franchisees' actions. Many donated to aid efforts, just trying to stop the bleeding, the severe brand damage locally.
Did it actually hurt their business? Or was it just noise online?
Oh, it hit the bottom line. The CEO, Chris Kempczinski, confirmed it in January 2024. He reported a meaningful business impact in the Middle East and nearby markets like Indonesia, Malaysia. He blamed the war, yes, but also associated misinformation. It showed how one local operator's actions, amplified by social media, can disrupt a whole region's economy for the brand.
Which led to that drastic corporate move. McDonald's actually bought back all 225 Israeli restaurants from the franchisee, Omri Padan-Salonial, in April 2024.
An expensive, really unusual step. They explicitly said it was to regain control.
Meaning, when corporate owns the outlets directly, they can stop any future political donations or actions that might threaten global brand neutrality.
Exactly. It signals the risk of politically active franchisees just became too high to manage under the old model. They needed direct control.
And it's interesting, the franchise himself, Omri Padan, wasn't exactly new to political friction.
Not at all. He was actually a founder of the Israeli peace group, Peace Now, and he'd caused controversy back in 2013 by refusing to open a McDonald's in the Ariel settlement in the occupied West Bank.
So political friction is almost inherent in the model when local operators have strong views.
It seems to be. Whether those views align or conflict with global brand interests, it's an inherent risk.
Okay, shifting back to the U.S., McDonald's became a target of this economic blackout movement, organized by the People's Union USA, led by John Schwartz. They planned a week-long boycott for June 2025. This one felt different because it bundled everything together.
That's exactly right. Instead of one issue like ingredients or a war, Schwartz and the organizers laid out 5 specific reasons. It's like a comprehensive, systemic attack on the company's ethics and finances all at once, hitting every pressure point we've discussed.
Okay, let's quickly run through those 5 points. What were they alleging?
Right. First, tax avoidance. Claiming McDonald's uses loopholes, pays less tax than its own workers, hits that fiscal governance point.
Okay.
Second, price gouging. Pointing to that reported 40% price hike since 2019, while the company made record profits, directly linking consumer pain to corporate greed.
Sure.
Anti-union tactics. Using the franchise loophole again to avoid direct responsibility for labor practices.
Fourth.
Exploiting global supply chains. Tying into deforestation, poor labor conditions in supplier factories, the environmental and ethical side.
And the fifth one was really interesting. Performative DEI practices. Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes, this felt like maybe the newest angle. They claimed McDonald's promotes diversity publicly, but its political donations and lobbying often support candidates or laws that undermine equity and labor rights.
And that tied into McDonald's own recent internal changes.
Directly. The company recently ended specific diversity goals, stopped external diversity surveys, and even renamed their diversity team to the Global Inclusion Team.
Which critics saw as
a corporate move to kind of insulate themselves from pressure in the current very charged political climate around DEI programs in the U.S.
Out of those 5, which one do you think gives the CEO the biggest headache right now?
Oh, good question. I'd argue maybe the combination of tax avoidance and that performative DEI claim, because it hits both the financial core and the PR strategy. Defending price hikes is one thing, but explaining your tax structure and a sudden shift away from specific DEI goals, that requires explaining internal philosophy, financial stuff, much harder to make sound good publicly.
And McDonald's did respond to the economic blackout movement.
They did. Issued a statement, welcomed honest dialogue, expressed disappointment over misleading claims, asserted commitment to inclusion, jobs, paying their fair share of taxes. The standard corporate defense playbook, really.
But the fact they had to issue such a detailed defense shows the scale of the challenge from modern activists, right? They target everything now.
Absolutely. It shows how coordinated activism can scrutinize every single aspect of a corporation's existence.
Right. We absolutely cannot wrap this up without digging into the 2 legal battles that probably cemented McDonald's image in the public mind more than any others. The hot coffee case and that Marathon libel trial.
Yeah, definitely. Let's start with Liebeck v. McDonald's Restaurants, 1994, the hot coffee case. It's maybe the prime example of legal facts getting completely stripped of context, just distorted in the public conversation.
It became the poster child for frivolous lawsuits, didn't it? Used by the tort reform movement.
Exactly. Despite the actual facts showing, well, genuine corporate negligence and incredibly severe injury.
Okay, let's unpack those facts people often miss. Stella Liebeck, 79 years old. She was a passenger, right? Not driving. Spilled coffee in her lap. But the injury.
The injuries were horrific. 3rd-degree burns, full thickness, destroying skin layers on her pelvic region. She needed 8 days in hospital, skin grafts, 2 years of medical treatment. This wasn't just a minor scald, it was life-altering.
And the coffee temperature. That was key.
Absolutely key. McDonald's policy required coffee to be held between 180 and 190 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 82 to 88 Celsius.
Which is incredibly hot.
Dangerously hot. Expert testimony showed coffee at that heat causes 3rd-degree burns in just 3 to 15 seconds of contact. Liebeck's lawyers argued the safer industry standard was around 140 Fahrenheit, giving you crucial seconds before severe damage.
And here's the kicker. McDonald's knew. Their internal documents proved it.
Completely. Documents showed over 700 prior burn reports between 82 and 92. They'd already paid out over $500,000 in settlements for coffee burns.
Yet their own quality control manager testified.
What? Testified that 700 reports wasn't enough reason to change practices. Because keeping it that hot was necessary for taste, apparently. It showed a clear willingness to risk safety for minor product preference.
And Liebeck initially just wanted her medical expenses covered. Around $20,000.
That's right. McDonald's only offered $800. That refusal is what led to the trial.
And the jury.
The jury was clearly appalled, found McDonald's 80% responsible, awarded $160,000 compensatory damages, and then the big number, $2.7 million in punitive damages.
Which they based on what, 2 days of coffee sales?
Exactly. 2 days of McDonald's coffee profit. Now, the judge reduced the punitive part to $480,000, making the total award $640,000 before they eventually settled confidentially, but the message was sent.
So if the facts were so clear, 700 prior burns, horrific injury, corporate knowledge, Why did the media narrative become greedy woman spills coffee while driving, sues for millions? How did it get so twisted?
That's the genius and the tragedy of the case's legacy. The tort reform movement jumped on that high punitive number, deliberately ignored the injury's severity, ignored the prior knowledge, ignored she wasn't driving. They successfully framed it as ridiculous, isolated greed.
Even though legal scholars called it a meaningful and worthy lawsuit.
Yes, because it forced accountability. But the public perception got shaped by that misrepresentation, pushed by corporate interests, and it stuck.
And it's still relevant. Just last year, 2023, a Florida jury awarded $800,000 to a little girl, 4 years old, burned by a hot chicken McNugget from a Happy Meal. So the duty of care issue persists.
It absolutely does. Now, if the hot coffee case was about product liability and how courts get misrepresented, the McLibel case, that was about free speech and corporate power, played out on a global stage.
Right, the McLibel trial. That epic 10-year battle in the UK against two London Greenpeace activists, David Morris and Helen Steele, all over a leaflet criticizing McDonald's.
Became the longest civil trial in English history. McDonald's spent millions on lawyers, private investigators. The defendants were unemployed activists, had to represent themselves. It looked like a total David versus Goliath fight.
Did McDonald's technically win?
On some minor points about the leaflet's accuracy, yes. But the sheer length, the cost, the image, it was widely seen as a massive PR disaster for them. Made them look like bullies.
And the activists got the last word, didn't they? At the European Court of Human Rights.
They did. In 2005, the ECHR ruled the trial breached their rights to a fair trial and free speech because the resources were so unequal. It was the ultimate vindication. It confirmed the public perception that McDonald's had used its power not just for justice, but to crush criticism.
Okay, finally, let's touch on the trademark wars. This shows McDonald's being super aggressive about protecting its brand, sometimes stumbling globally.
Yeah, this highlights how valuable, almost sacred, that McPrefix is to them. In the EU, the Irish chain Supermax fought back in 2017.
What was their argument?
They argued McDonald's was trademark bullying, basically, registering lots of McMac-related trademark for things they didn't even sell just to block competitors.
And surprisingly, the EU Intellectual Property Office agreed.
Mostly, yes. The UIPO canceled McDonald's Big Mac trademark and some other McMarks for things other than meat and poultry sandwiches within the EU. They said McDonald's hadn't proven genuine use for those other products over 5 years. A stunning defeat.
Which competitors immediately jumped on.
Oh, yeah. Burger King started trolling them instantly, put up menus in Europe with items like a Big Mac but juicier, or Big Mac-ish, but flame-grilled, of course, just rubbing it in.
A clear sign that overly aggressive trademark protection can backfire.
Definitely. And they lost a similar fight over the McCurry trademark in Malaysia back in 2009, too.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a dizzying amount of ground here. From beef trimmings chemistry to the geopolitics of franchising and conflict zones. It's a lot.
It really is, and what the sources show, I think, is that these critiques aren't just random outrage. They represent these deep systemic challenges that any massive multinational faces when trying to balance profit, public health, labor dignity, environmental ethics, all across incredibly diverse cultures and regulations.
McDonald's almost becomes a real-world proxy for pretty much every modern debate about capitalism and globalization itself.
Exactly. They're constantly navigating contradictory pressures. Consumers want low prices and sustainable sourcing. Investors want growth. Activists demand ethical labor. Local politics demand global neutrality. It's a tightrope walk.
So what does this all mean for the future of the Golden Arches? Where does this leave them?
Well, if we look at that most recent drastic move, buying back the Israeli franchise specifically to regain control after the boycott hit them so hard, it really makes you wonder about the whole franchise model itself, doesn't it?
How so?
It raises this fundamental provocative question. In today's hyper-connected world, where one local franchisee's action can go global and political in seconds, can a giant like McDonald's ever truly control its reputation? Or is that decentralized franchise model just inherently, permanently exposed to these high-speed political and ethical risks popping up anywhere, anytime?
That is definitely something to think about.
That's the question you have to consider as this deep dive concludes.